So welcome everybody. Norrin,
Yes.
happy birthday.
It's our first birthday. Can you believe that?
I can't. I mean, we've been doing it for longer than, because we recorded first one about 2 months before we went live with it.
Yeah, we did.
So about 6 weeks, I think. So we've actually been doing this for longer than a year. But to everyone out there, this will be the 50th episode, and this is also our first birthday, because the 11th of June 2019, which was a Tuesday, which this year is a Thursday, which is our new regular day. So thank you, leap years.
Yes.
Yeah, episode 50 is...
stars aligned.
I know, so that worked out quite well. So people listening to us will by now have seen the episode title.
Yes.
So they will know who our guests are.
Ooh.
And we recorded this back in April. And obviously at that point, as today, the sky was falling. So everyone was hunkered down in their own homes. And I can honestly say that Julie and Boris were possibly the nicest people I've spoken to.
For sure.
And yeah, because we arranged this. So just a kind of bit of background, we arranged this as a result of Julie posting on her Instagram, because Boris doesn't really do social media. So Julie has her own feed, and she posted a picture of herself listening to some earbuds while she paints.
Yeah.
And looking just radiant as she does.
Yes.
And I cheekily commented on the from the Instagram of the podcast, "Oh, I'm sure you're listening to us." And she replied, "Yes, I was." And I said, "Well, how's about time you come onto the podcast?" And she said, "Sure, just let me know." And I was like,
What an amazing. That's amazing.
I know.
I still can't believe it. I'm still in shock.
Yeah, my jaw went on the floor for a little bit, and then it took a couple of weeks actually for me to pick myself up off the floor. So I finally rustled up the courage to send her a message, because we had her email. And for those who have been on board since episode 1, Julie was the very first voice heard.
Yes.
On this podcast, so it's kind of fitting that they come back. So we went back and forth. We arranged a date and time, and because of lockdown, we were both a little bit freer, and we arranged something that worked for everyone. And as the day grew closer, I kind of started having a feeling in the back of my mind as I was doing the research for it and looking at their book, one of their books, one that focuses on their Marvel work, and looking at their website. I kind of had this feeling, and then of course, as you'll hear, without burying the lead too much, as you will hear, the camera goes live, and there's Julie sat there, who we expected, because we'd been speaking to Julie, and there's Boris sat next to us. So
just all crazy,
sudden, whole different ball game.
The duel themselves, man. The painting gods as they are in the Marvel Masterpiece realm. Just insane to see her and him there.
And
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was just a giddy 90 minutes. I mean, I prepared a load of questions. Norrin prepared a load of questions. They kind of all went out the window a little bit. And listen, we've been doing this for a year. I think we're getting better at it, but I think we've kind of regressed a little bit, because we both went a bit fangirl.
Just a little bit.
And but it was good. One thing I will say, and obviously once you've listened to this, and there will be a video that comes out with a slightly trimmed version of the podcast, although it will be using visuals. But I believe we're not going to use their video, because we didn't ask them permission for that. But
we did ask them for permission.
Oh, did we? Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, so we're solid.
Oh, in that case. Well, which pretty much describes me throughout the course of the interview. So I am sorry, Julie. Sorry, Boris. One thing that I loved was how we just got a brief snapshot into how wonderful they are as a couple, as an entity.
Yes, that was so lovely to see.
The interplay between them, the way they looked at each other, the way they kind of dovetailed the answers to the questions. I think Boris may have repeated it, but he said something brilliant just before we started recording that gave me such an insight into his character and his enthusiasm and his passion that I was just blown away by it. So yeah. I don't know what else to say apart from, we should probably let people hear the interview.
Yes, I think so. I think it's time to.
We've been talking about this for
the anticipation has been enough.
I
think people are ready.
Patient. Marvelous.
Love it.
So all I wanted to say, which is why we wanted to do this kind of pre-credits bit, which we don't normally do, is thank you. If you're listening to this, thank you. This was kind of a grand experiment. Hey, let's start a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of nice how Julie has bookmarked the first day and the 50th. Yeah. I mean, I think without that momentum of getting Julie first and getting all these artists to kind of come in and say hi and stuff, I don't think we would have kept at it as long as we have. And having Julie now really gets us pumped to the next 50 episodes. And again, thank you to everybody who's spending the time to listen to this. And we hope you're enjoying the show.
Yeah. As I've always said, this podcast is for you guys. It's for the hobby. I won't lie. There is a little bit of us needing to just chat about the hobby as well. So it's for us as well. And I think we said fairly early on, this is kind of like therapy for us in a way. I think
it's nice to talk about the hobby and to talk about things too.
Yeah. It's nice. Good to talk, as Bob Hoskins used to say. On that note, Norrin, thank you. I couldn't do this with anyone else.
Thank you, Ian.
This is just awesome that we get to hang out every week and just talk about what we love. So thank you.
Happy birthday, brother.
Happy birthday. Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Taylor, and welcome to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, brought to you by the Marvel Cards Fan Collective, an awesome community of card collectors and creators. You can find our two groups on Facebook, details of which are at the end of this podcast, so come check us out. With me is my co-pilot in all things Marvel cards. Everything he does is a true Marvel masterpiece. It's Norrin Rad.
Stop it. So nice. Hello, everybody.
I'm always so nice to you at the start of the episodes.
You are, and then it's like a perpetual beating as we keep going. But, that's I'm used to it.
You get
I cry later off the show.
You get used to it. So I can't kind of chit-chat with you any longer. Speaking of true Marvel, much as I'd like to. Speaking of true Marvel masterpieces, with us on the podcast this week. I'm going to hold it together. Well, we originally intended to have the fine, award-winning artist and creator of many beautiful works that our listeners will know, Julie Bell. But in the true spirit of two for the price of one, Boris has joined her on the call. So, Julie, Boris, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
It's absolutely giddy with excitement.
I can't believe this is happening. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm going to calm down. I'm good.
Anyway,
I'm good.
We will try and be professional. We will try not to geek out or nerd out on you in any way, shape, size, or form. I don't think I asked you this before, Julie, when we were going backwards and forwards. Have you done any podcasts before? Have you been guests on any podcasts?
There's one, John Dalton. He's an art writer. I think, and honestly, I can't really remember. I just really don't think so. No. Not that I can remember at this moment. I feel kind of bad if I'm not remembering something really cool that happened, and then that person's like, "Oh, fine. I don't know."
In years to come, you can both talk about this day to your children and grandchildren. So, of course, listeners will know this, and we just talked about this before we started recording. But both of you have kind of been on the podcast before because you very kindly did our first intros, and Julie, you were actually the very first voice anyone heard on episode 1.
I'm seriously honored. That's really cool.
Of this podcast. No, believe me, the honor is all ours. So And Boris, you were on episode 3. Do you want to know who beat you into episode 2 spot?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So on episode 2, we used a different artist, and then we used you on episode 3. Do you want to know who was on episode 2? Who got between you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
The Glebe brothers, Matt and Mick Glebe. I don't know if you've seen any of their work.
If I have, I can't say that I recognize it. No.
Yeah, it's astonishing. They've done an awful lot of Marvel trading card work in the last, I guess, 5 years, Norrin?
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Mm-hmm. So they're kind of very, very current and contemporary.
Right.
On the sketch art side, they do very just incredible pieces of work. So I'll drop you a link actually, so you can have a look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Great. So do you? We're going to go all over the shop here. Do you kind of keep up with current kind of Marvel kind of characters? What's happening in trading cards, or with the characters or with the universe? Since
honestly, we that was like when we did those cards, we were really super involved in it at that time, and I had known a lot about Marvel before that, but really. Our lives keep us so busy with other things, and we just haven't really stayed involved with that, altogether. We still do a few commissions here and there for individuals that want paintings of superheroes, and it's always fun to revisit that. But not really ongoing. And we definitely keep up with the movies that happen. We love the Marvel movies, and but the trading cards and that the comic books, all those things we really have not, unfortunately.
That's right.
So, yeah.
I mean, for me, it was something that I did many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah. And I move in different levels,
mm-hmm.
of art and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's just I have to confess, I haven't been really, really in touch with the Marvel world.
Yeah, it would be like a part-time job. It's a lot of stuff to follow.
Well, and like with my art too, it's like so all over the place. I get into the animal thing and the Western thing and the fantasy, and then just portrait or all different kinds of things. I'm even trying out some abstract stuff.
As time goes on, also you get a lot of private commissions, from different people and so on and so forth. And sometimes, they want characters,
mm-hmm.
that come from the Marvel place.
Right.
And we have to say, no, we can't do that.
No, we don't do that. We do take those commissions. We do.
That was for me, when I first saw your art, I was a lot younger. I first saw the superhero art book of, Julie and Boris, and I saw your work, and that's kind of like what really drew me to those characters, funny enough. And in our group and on our show, so many of us, in a strange way, it wasn't necessarily the comics that got us into the Marvel world and these superheroes and these stories. It was really you guys. It was both of you. And
I really do feel like our art is our art, and it just crosses over. And if they're wearing superhero costumes and following a superhero story, that's just part of our art in my world, And I can see where it was a very nice fit, because the way we think about the physiques and the action and the power that the people have, it's like really, if you look at our general fantasy art, it's really much like superheroes, but just not with their costumes and their stories.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I have to say. I have to mention this here. Both Julie and myself, for many years, we have been involved with bodybuilding. And, really very much into exercising, very much into bodybuilding, and actually very much in touch with the professional bodybuilders.
Yeah.
And so when it came to do, superheroes, well, we knew the muscles, we knew the attitude of the people that, so it was just like a natural thing to get into.
Well, it's so funny because my dad was a bodybuilder.
Oh, that's cool.
And he won like Mr. Miami in a couple of competitions and stuff. Oh, wow. Uh-huh. And he was the one that kind of showed me your book.
Cool.
Yeah. So we kind of bonded on seeing the physiques and stuff. And, bodybuilding is such a science and a profession. It really is a career. It's kind of an art form in the sense of, what you have to do to sculpt your own body. It's quite a lot of, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's really interesting.
It's a big subject. It really is.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So how did you, because that was actually going to be one of my first questions, because Julie, I know did you used to do bodybuilding professionally at one time?
Oh yeah, I was a national level competitor and really enjoyed that world during the time I was involved in it, competing. It was just a lot of fun to have that particular structure going on in my life. You know, I mean, I've always been a pretty athletic person, but never, I wasn't never on like a team sport or anything, but I did love things like gymnastics and dance and, you know, things like swimming and diving and that. Oops, sorry. But, hey, Boris, tell her to stop. But anyway, you know, it's like, it was just, the bodybuilding thing just happened in you know, it was like a series of events that led me into that exact thing. But once I got into it, it just really kind of like captured, like I was just so, I don't know, hooked on it really. And I enjoyed the science aspect of it too, you know, studying the nutrition and how, you know, what's the best way to build your muscles. I never ever did take any steroids, and I'm so grateful that I didn't get into that. I wanted to see how far I could put myself, you know, just naturally with nutrition and exercising really hard. And, you know, I am somebody who's capable of like pushing myself pretty hard and being very disciplined, but I had to realize that I was like, my tolerance for that kind of thing is probably more than it should be. And so it's not healthy for me. Even without the drugs, it was unhealthy for me to keep pursuing it at that level. Just it's really not a good thing to go too far with something, you know?
Yeah. That's what I always heard too. Like, my father had friends who into bodybuilding, and they were throwing out their backs and just showing too much weight, not being disciplined.
Forget about your knees,
Forget about your knees, and that's what I've always heard too. It's really tough on the body. That's really amazing though. Yeah.
Yeah,
really
but cool. It is interesting, and you know, you learn like you're capable of way more than you thought you were, and things like that. You know, even if you do those things on the physical level, you know, I definitely would say that I apply that in my painting. There are times when I'm working on a painting, and I just have to like, I know like, okay, this feels like it could be impossible to finish this painting right now because it's just so much in front of me, and you just have to just keep going, and it's the same as if you're at the gym and you just push on, you know.
Well, with both of your work, the level of endurance that it takes to do these pieces I've seen you both do, I mean, the detail and the patience, I mean, it's just so admirable and really wonderful, really wonderful.
It's really, really so much part of our life.
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting, you know, the thing what Julie was talking about, the bodybuilding connection. We had people that were Mr. Universe, Miss Universe, you know, and world-known bodybuilders come to model for us.
Wow.
And it was really interesting because it wasn't just, you know, American people that were, you know, Mr. America and so on, but we got people from Europe coming here, you know, to model for us, and that to be in, you know, a lot of the sets and so on and so forth.
Wow.
It really something that it was very passionate for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We actually have a mutual acquaintance on that front, a gentleman by the name of Pat King, who I believe recently did some modelling for you. He and I connected about a year ago, and we've got this kind of strange connection in that he was in, you know, the Marvel Universe live tours. That tour around to their live shows, and he played Wolverine in the first one of those, and I work for a marketing agency that promote those shows in the UK. So we kind of had this bizarre connection where I was selling the show that he was in.
He's a great guy, and he came and posed for us recently, and his girlfriend was with him.
That's right.
And Boris is actually working on a painting right now of him as the Greek, I don't think he's a Greek god, but he was a Greek figure in history, Asclepius. He's father of medicine or something. Yeah, and so there's a guy that has commissioned Boris to do a painting that he wants. He's a doctor, and he wanted a painting of Asclepius, and so Pat is Asclepius there. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah.
So I thought I'd give Pat a shout out on the episode. So
Pat.
Hello, Pat. So going back, so Boris, so were you, because you mentioned that you were into the bodybuilding, did you actually do that yourself, or is it just a fitness thing for you, or did you actually compete and train like Julie did?
Well, I did bodybuilding, and I was very, very faithful about going to the gym, working out regularly and so on for many years. Now, did I enter competition? No, I did not. I didn't have, what Julie had, genetics for it. Yeah. And I looked like somebody who worked out, and people would notice that. But I was not really competition level, I have to say. I have to admit that. And so still, it was even better for me that I didn't go completely into it that way. Because, let's face it, I'm an artist, and I have always been an artist. I started working professionally as an artist when I was about 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
In South America. And I came here to the United States precisely because I wanted to be an artist here. And it actually was something that was really, really magnificent, because I came to the United States when I was 23 years old in 1964. And I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anybody. I didn't even have a place to stay. And within 3 weeks, I had a job.
Wow.
And I was doing art. So it worked really wonderfully.
Wow.
So, but that was really my thing. It was not bodybuilding. Bodybuilding was something that I would have liked to be a bodybuilder, like a bodybuilder. But it was not there.
He started training with weights when you were like 16 or something.
That's right.
And just when he was in Peru, and he didn't even, he was. I think he said you had something like a broom with like weights right on the ends or something.
Yes, that's right.
Rocks or something. Was it rocks or what was it?
Actually,
bricks?
It was actually the wheels of a car.
Oh, wheels of a car.
So, it was really, really interesting, because when I came here, I was working already as a professional, and that's how I met Julie. The owner of a gym that I know was a friend of mine called me up on the phone, and he said, "You have to see this woman that just won one of my contests. She is magnificent, and you would love working with her."
Oh.
And I figured, let's take a look.
Let's take a look.
More than 30 years later, here we are.
The rest, as they say, is history. I love it.
That's right.
That's so nice.
I have a stand-in thing for when I'm lifting stuff. It's my 4-year-old. She's getting heavy, so.
I know. When my kids were little too, I was like, I always want to be strong enough to have one in each arm.
I'm sure there are family photos above the mantelpiece of you with like them and their friends in each arm. Do you So, Julie, you mentioned that you were you weren't new to Marvel when you kind of got your first Marvel work. Can you kind of tell me where you first kind of connected with Marvel?
In my previous marriage, my ex-husband was he was into it when he was a kid, I guess, or I don't know when in his life, but at one point he came across a series that. I'm trying to think of, it was an Avengers on the moon. It was really a very cool thing. And he just happened to, we were at a store one day and he just found this, just saw it. And he was like, hey, I haven't looked at comic books in so long. And he picked it up and he just really really got into the story, and so I started reading it. So I was reading it when I was studying art in college and everything at that time, and started to recognize like this art is really art, and it's really good. And so I would, like copy the comic books and draw figures from the comics. And then I got the book called How to Draw the Marvel Way, and all that.
Oh yeah, I think I've got it here.
Such a good book. It really is excellent. It really has so many good things to learn in there. It's a great book, and it's timeless. I think it's good for any artist, no matter what kind of art you're aspiring to do. But anyway, it was just a neat thing, and I really did get into a lot of the comics at that time. So yeah, I knew enough about the Marvel world that when it, actually what happened to begin with is that I wasn't really knowing that I was going to be doing anything like what I did. I went to Marvel to meet, I can't remember the guy, his name, famous, like the big shot at the time. Oh, well, anyway, he was the editor, one of the editors there, and he saw my work that I had done for like video game covers and things like that, and he said, it'd be great if you would do like, how about if you do Conan, because at the time they had Conan comics. So I did a couple of those, and one of the ones that I did, I was kind of messing around with this technique of painting metal, and I had seen the work of Soriyama, and
yes.
So I did this painting of Conan with this metallic, like a chrome horse kind of thing that was like running over him. And they were just really impressed with that. And so that led to them saying, hey, we have this trading card thing that we're going to start doing, and it would be great. Maybe you could do an Iron Man. I think Iron Man was the first one that they had me do, and then a Silver Surfer and a Colossus. So they had those three that had the metal, thing as the theme there. And so that kind of was my first foot in the door with it. And I was just super excited to be involved with Marvel. I just always I love the idea of Marvel as an institution. Long before any of that ever took place, when I was before I was even anywhere close to working professionally as an artist, I worked at a little newspaper in Marquette, Michigan, as a secretary, basically. But also I would do some artwork for them here and there. It was in their advertising department. And so one of the things is that you could make phone calls to anywhere. At that time, long distance calling was kind of expensive and a big deal. And so, but I would just sometimes have nothing to do. And so I called up the offices of Marvel, and I was like, why is the beast blue and furry now? And he didn't used to be. Why did he get blue and furry?
The questions that keep us up at night, really.
It was the answer. It was like I asked for somebody in the editorial department, because I said, I have a question about one of your characters. So they connected me. And so guy was like, well, I guess he just mutated further or something. I don't know. So he wasn't really sure. But anyway, I just like the idea of being connected with Marvel somehow. I just thought it was a neat thing. So
that's so cool. That's awesome.
That's hilarious.
I love it. I love that. I absolutely love that. That's amazing. Well, it's funny that both of your work, both of you have this storytelling component to the work. And when we spoke to Simone Bianchi, who is part of the Marvel Masterpiece 2018 set, who did the whole set similar to what you have both done for 96, we were talking about how each portrayal, every portrait of a character, every moment you capture in a frame of a character seemed to have this momentum of a story that was behind it. And I think for a lot of us collectors, when we look at both your work, there seems to be this whole before and after, and then you capture the moment. It's fantastic. And that's the thing I always remember from the set, like my favorite character, Silver Surfer, and Boris and you.
He's such a good character. He's so deep. That's the thing. I mean, he has so much story. It's just in his eyes, right?
But see, both of you've done that for him. I feel like both of you capture the personality of the characters rather than just simply portraying the characters, And for when we talk about this stuff on the show and with our other collector friends and all this other stuff, I think that's the thing that really connect us emotionally to the work of the art, right? And then I've seen both of your work throughout your careers, and I've kept up with you both because I'm just so fascinated by the movements, right? And that kind of lighting. I mean, lighting for both of you is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just miraculous how you portray light.
Well, thank you so much. We do think about lighting a lot. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that, that it's something that really, when you are an artist, you are not just an artist. You have a specialty. You have things, and you go in a certain direction with your art. And it's not something that just happens. It has to fit your personality. It has to fit the audience, and you select what area you want to go into and what area of art you want to go into. And then hope that audience is going to go for what you're doing. So,
well, another thing also about when you're talking about the lighting, it makes me think of that we both also we still are, like, we're interested in photography a lot. And like Boris was talking about, the bodybuilders that would come to pose for us and other models too, and, we would do photography just as photography a lot. And it's like when you're thinking of, painting and photography, it's like they really inform each other. If you're shooting photographs and you also paint, you're going to shoot your photographs in probably a different way than someone who just does photography and doesn't paint, I would imagine.
I would love to see a book. I don't know if there is. I'm sorry if there is already, but to see that, I mean, I can imagine for you guys, both of you must.
Boris is photography, but there's not both of us.
Yes. But I think like the comparison, like the juxtapiposition between your photos and what comes to the thing. I think I've seen a couple examples of that, but
right.
I think I guess a question for you, which a question I had listed was there ever a moment where you took a photo and you were like, oh, I really love this photo. Photo. I mean, yeah. Because I can imagine it becomes more than just referential. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, because I can imagine the photo becomes more than referential, especially with how you set up your studio, with how you do your lighting, with what you're trying to capture. So I guess my question would be, when you are capturing these photos, what moment how do you know when you got the photo? Is it later when you're looking at the negatives, or you're looking at the prints, or when you're there, you take and you're like, I don't know, that felt good. I feel like that did it.
Honestly, it's all of those. And the thing is that I personally really like when I have a model, it depends on the model and how much they trust themselves really to just kind of express their own self through movement. But, when a model can just really inspire me by something that I didn't expect is really very cool. But another thing that happens is that, we have photos that we've taken over all these years, and we keep them all, and we keep them all very safe. And we, look over things from years past. Like right now, I'm starting a new painting that I'm using a photo that was probably shot in the mid-90s. And I never really appreciated the photo at that time. I think it's just one of these things that's like, there's a quality to it that I'm seeing now, that's who I am now, that's connecting to that, and so it's like, I always thought, okay, it looks really good, but it's not quite it, because I had a different goal at that time. I had a different energy in my work. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, so another thing is that you approach the things also in different ways. You're talking about the marble masterpieces, It's not like all of a sudden we decided we are going to do that, They call us.
Yeah.
And we have this set that we want you to work at. And we have to really, really study each character. And then we work on sketches without the model. With rough sketches, rough pencil sketches. And based on those sketches, we decide who we're going to use as a model, and then start with that pose.
Wow.
From there.
Yeah, because sometimes, you do a sketch and then you get your model and then they do something that's 100 times better. And you're like, Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that's where it was going. So, and
it's
the
not
sketch
a simple
is just
thing.
It's like a springboard. So,
right.
Yeah.
It's not a simple thing. It becomes very complicated, very involved. But you get used to it.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm sure it's very organic too.
It is organic. Yeah. You just learn to flow with it. And if you fight it, then you're losing something really precious. So
absolutely,
you learn to just not struggle with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to me because I was going to ask, it kind of relates to it. So when you're called by Marvel to do that full set, because I know you'd done some work before for them, Julie, on some other sets, and then all of a sudden, you've got this 100-card set. I would imagine that's over 100 images because there's some inserts as well. So, what kind of process is that? I know when we referenced that we spoke to Simone and he spent 15 months solidly working on 140 pieces, I believe it was.
You're right.
And obviously he's different. There's two of you. So can you think back to how you approached that? I imagine it's standing at the base of a mountain thinking, okay, how am I going to get up there?
And you can't look at the top. You look right in front of you. And the thing is that they did divide the characters. They said, Boris, we would like you to do these, and Julie, we would like you to do these.
Oh,
so they were the ones who chose who did what.
Absolutely.
And some of them, they had us each do different versions of, different of the same character. So to make it interesting, I think it is interesting to see like how Boris would do, this one, so.
Yeah.
And then once we had our whole list, I think, I'm really not remembering how did we just like the basic, like you're saying, the start of it now. If somebody were to come to me with that now, the process of breaking it down and figuring out, okay, how am I going to start? Because you got to start create some kind of system, and then you got to start somewhere and don't. Boris actually did work pretty different from the way I did because I'm somebody who is so insecure about not finishing on time and that kind of thing that I would be terrified and never sleep at night if I wasn't staying on my schedule. So from my own self-preservation, I have to keep up with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But Boris has much easier conscience on that stuff. And so he really... I was really worried, like, how is he going to catch up? Because he didn't work on it for quite a while. He did some to begin with, and then he didn't work on it for a pretty good long time. And I was like, I don't know what he's going to do. I have no idea how he's going to finish this, and maybe I'll have to jump in and help him at the end or whatever. And all of a sudden, he just put them all out all at one time. It was just crazy, and they were fantastic.
Wow.
So it wasn't like he did shoddy work because it was fast. It was just fantastic.
You would never. No, yeah, that's amazing.
Great.
You know yourself. You know what is that makes you work better. In fact, if I have too much time for something, I really, really don't think I do my best.
Yeah.
I think I think about it. I do work on the sketches and so on and so forth. I get it ready, and then when finally, I start painting. Then it moves.
It's ready.
All this
it's ready
time
to be born.
Really meditation, the whole process.
Right.
Wow, that's so fascinating how you both work in such different ways. So this is a crazy question, but I'm just wondering, do you both work in the same studio space or you have separate studio spaces?
It's the same room, but it is divided into two very distinct places.
We have a room in our house that is set as a studio, and we share that room. So we are together 24 hours a day in the house, and we are half of that at least at the studio.
Yeah.
So the thing is that we are so 100% compatible. That is unbelievable.
It's true. Yeah, this whole quarantine thing is like, as far as that
not phasing you whatsoever.
This is different for us, in that particular way.
And it's not that we agree on everything. We don't.
Mm-mm.
But if we don't agree on something, we accept that, you have the right to your own opinion, I have the right to mine, and you do your thing and I do mine.
Yeah.
And that's that. That's actually really, we have been together for more than 30 years.
Wow.
And 30 years every day of the week, 24 hours a day.
Well, he's taking it a little.
Every second. we just don't leave each other.
But, you know,
No, I understand. Yeah, my wife and I are the same way. I
work for us.
Yeah, that's really nice.
So when you were working on it, because I find it fascinating that, Boris, you kind of let it develop inside you, and I'm the same. If I've got too much time to do something, I often find I won't start it, or I might start it and then go away, and then I'll come back and I feel like I'll
do something. Yeah.
But I feel like I'll work better if I do it at once. And I'm someone who often, if I do create something, whatever it may be, it will be almost a one take without much editing. Mm-hmm. Because I'll have thought about it before I actually start doing it. But do you kind of finish one piece and start another? Or have you got more than one going on at the same time in different stages of development? Can you kind of jump from each like that, or would you have to finish one before you start the other?
This is very interesting because Julie is usually working on half a dozen pieces.
At least.
Wow.
And she usually jumps from one to another and works on all of them. She doesn't waste time. If she is done for that day with that particular piece, goes on to the next and continues working for the whole day. I don't do it that way. To me, I'm working on one piece, and if that is as far as I can do, if at 2:00 in the afternoon is as far as I can go on that piece for that day, that's it. That's it.
That's smart, though. I think that's fascinating. You have to, like you said before, which was, both of you are so inspirational. Like you said before, as an artist, you figure out your momentum, you figure out your pattern, you figure out your pacing, your rhythm, right? And being an artist is not compromising your discipline, but also being super aware of where you are mentally, so you can kind of give. Yeah.
And this is what I'm thinking about it as you're talking, that actually it works the way our style of working works for each one of us. If I have too many things to do at the same time, it takes me longer.
I think that we both, I know that I have a definite, like ADHD kind of thing, but something that I use as a superpower rather than a problem. Because you know how to structure your ADHD, and it's not too much for you to handle. It could be like overwhelming, but it's at a level where it helps me to be able to jump from one thing to another in a good way. And Boris has a different, way of his brain, that it's happiest and the way that it functions the best. So,
and the thing is that there is not to say this is better than the other. Obviously, we both very successful. We both have the work done, and we both do work that is really, really good.
Yeah.
And they have gone, on to history.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah. And I think, being in this hobby and, having other interests outside of this, like Ian does, and we both do, I think what's really fascinating is that, for me, and not to say there, what's the definition of good art or anything, there's no real definition. What you're into is what you're into. The pieces are pieces. They have emotion to them, things like that. But for me, though, what I care, it's what I carry from the piece, right? It's what I take from the piece and store inside of me. Mm-hmm. And I think that has always been my relationship with seeing pieces and art. It's this kind of absorption, right? This absorbing that happens when you interact with a piece. And I think that's what's, it's really what's made this hobby a lot better for us, looking at your work. And it really does. It really touches all of us. And, obviously, we all thank you for those wonderful things, just to put that out there. We really appreciate it because, we've spoken to other artists, Dave DeVries, Simone Bianchi, other sketch card artists, and other people who've worked on these massive sets as well. And the continuous factor of why they are so great is because they've put in real personality into them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's really mirrored reflections. Really beautiful, wonderful stuff.
Communication is really part of the drive. And it's really, I don't know, both of us have had a lot of different experiences in our lives that have been fairly parallel, even though we come from very different worlds and we're different ages and everything. But it's interesting that for both of us, the whole concept of empowerment of someone is very important to each one of us. And I think that that's a lot of what's that feeling that you're describing, that we want to communicate to other people. We want to give that,
Yes.
If I could give anything out to so yeah, and I definitely see that in the work of, Dave DeVries and Simone Bianchi, and that, it's like, it really, that whole thing of communicating, like my personal wish for everybody, is just a wonderful aspect of being an artist. It's very fulfilling when I see it happening.
And the art is not just a job. It's not just a commission that we get. It's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's what we come up. It's part of us that comes out with it, and it means that much to us.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one thing that you mentioned there, Norrin, is when you go back and you look at pieces. When we were both doing our homework for talking to you today, I think we've both got a copy of this.
God, I love that book.
Right.
Which I only got this last year, although I've had the card set for longer. And what I loved about looking through here is that I saw a lot of the pieces in a larger format. I saw them without the overlay of the title or the logos that were on the final cards, and actually it was. And it's the same with movies. The movie Scarface, for example, when I first saw it, I didn't like it, but then I saw it about 10 years later, and I absolutely loved it, and I kind of clicked. And so it's about, when you mentioned earlier about going back to a photo that you might have had for 20 years, and you look at it, and now it kind of clicks, and it starts a journey for you. It's a similar thing with, I guess, with any viewer of anything. It's like when I'm looking at some of these pieces in here, I see a different story in them now, or I see more of the story that maybe was intended, or maybe it's something I'm projecting onto it. I don't know. But and as a result, I made copious notes about some of the work, which I'm not going to be able to go through. But yeah,
it makes me happy that it would touch you that way, and that you would like see your own life's journey in whatever art you're seeing in that or any other art. I mean, that's really. It's just it's a wonderful thing to be able to have and to be part of that, so.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I mean, I remember, everyone takes for granted now, but there's tons of superhero stuff. You go to a Barnes & Noble and you can see every superhero. You can have rows and rows of superhero things. But when I was younger and looking for superhero stuff, it wasn't only the comics and sequential art, which I'm a huge fan of sequential art. But when I would go and look for Marvel things or things with superheroes, or things that a younger kid would enjoy, and seeing these stories and levels of empathy and just good characters, I would come across Titans, and all of a sudden I'm looking at these pieces and it's this impact, right? It's this really big, beautiful impact. And I think what's really cool in terms of card series is that there's an insert set in the 1996 Marvel Masterpiece that you both worked on called the Double Impact set. And those cards don't have the font or the logo on them.
That's true.
And they are, really sought out by collectors, and they're probably some of the most expensive pieces and sought out pieces in all of our hobby. They're kind of like a benchmark. They're basically considered grails.
In here.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. So they're basically grail pieces for us. And I think the reason they are that way is because there is nothing, just like the rest of the set, nothing's inhibiting the art, right? It's there, it's in a smaller format. And I think there's also like a tangible thing that happens with card art, at least, just to give you our perspective on that, because your pieces, you work on such big formats, and I can, only certain people get to have that kind of impact with an original piece, especially at scale, right?
Yeah.
But for everyone to have like that tangible thing where you're like, oh my gosh, look, I get to enjoy this now in my my quiet little collector's corner. I think what's really fascinating about the set you worked on is that because that artwork demanded so much of that frame and so much of that space, not having anything inhibit that art was really monumental to the success of the set, I think.
It's, because we are artists. We don't do art as a job.
Right.
It's who we are. And we put it into what we do. And so what people see, of our paintings is just much, much more than a job.
Yeah.
It's actually really part of who we are, a big part of who we are.
Yeah.
So,
and I think a lot of us
that it really shows.
Yeah, it really does. It's really cool.
Well, one of the I made all these notes. I'm not going to go through them all, but the one thing that came up time and time again is that it's not in every piece, but there are some pieces, especially in the females that you drew, Julie, where the character is looking directly at you, the viewer. And it's interesting that in some of them, I've written down one of them, Silver Sable, is looking directly at the viewer, as if to say, "F you, come on then," come
but attitude.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There is attitude, there is confidence there, in every single piece. But the one that contrasted for me, because I'm my character Norrin is a big Silver Surfer fan. I'm a Black Cat is my of fan. But Spider-Man was the one I always grew up with. And there's the piece that you did, Julie, of in fact, I'll hold it up. I'm sure you know it because you created it. But this one, and I looked at that, and I kind of looked at it, and just the fact that one of his eyes. And for those listening, by the way, what we always do is we put up images to go alongside the episode, so that we put them on our Facebook group so people can listen and look at that as well. You can only see one of his eyes, and I've just made some notes. I said, one eye visible, looks weary, perhaps a little anxious, but determined, almost resigned to his duty. I've just written, captures his struggle. And it's just, you just get that from that one eye that you're seeing. Because he's like,
yeah,
he's a little sweaty looking, I think, because I love that. Hot, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I would think so. Well, it's funny that you brought up Silver Sable, because when you compare Silver Sable, which is the one Julie did, and then Crystal, which is the one you did, Boris, where she's like holding like when you see both of you capture the personality of these characters, but then it's not like your styles are like totally different, because they are different. Like I recognize the Boris piece when I see it. I recognize the Belle piece when I see it. But when you put them side to side, they do have such this beautiful complementary uniqueness to them, especially with two female characters like that doing that kind of disdain, that kind of focused and determined kind of look. Yeah, it's just such a great example, Ian. Those are great pieces. Really beautiful pieces.
One thing that I mean, even before I knew Boris, and especially when I think, like in the meantime anyway, the way that he portrays women is also very powerful. He really doesn't portray women as brainless pretty girls that are just toys or something. And I really appreciate, not just appreciate, but I love it that he, that's how he sees women. That's what he likes to see in a woman. He wants to see a woman's own power and strength. And then that's what comes across in the paintings, whether they have muscles or not. It's not
no, it's not the muscles. It's the spirit of it, right? It's that essence. Yeah. And in the comic book world, it's true. In the comic book world, there's a lot of misogyny and a lot of sexism and all that other stuff. It's just a fact, unfortunately, as horrible as that is. And I think that is 100% true, right? These female characters, at least for me as a collector, when I see a card of a female character, I want to see the power. I want to see the vulnerability, power, determination, all the things that other male superhero characters have too. I want to see that
here.
Yeah, because they're people. You know what I mean? So, as bizarre as that is to have to say, unfortunately, but they're people, and I do 100% agree, both of you, with all of your characters, even villains, which just to segue a little bit. There's always this there's this complication, there's this complexity within the characters. And it's just really interesting, really fascinating and beautiful. Yeah.
Do you, Boris, you kind of mentioned this because this isn't work for you because you're artists. So, and one of the notes I had to ask you is, I remember a couple of years back on the BBC in the UK, there was a series called "What Do Artists Do All Day." And it literally did follow, I think, 6 different artists in 6 different mediums to find out how they spent their day and, what they filled their time with, and whether there was a start and a stop of the work, as it were, and whether they, in time off. How do you, because you live there, your studio's there, is there a dividing line between, I'm going to use the word work, but I know that's probably not how you view it, work and not working. What is your typical day, I guess?
No, I wouldn't say, actually, really, honestly, I couldn't say there is a divide of the line. It's actually really all part of when I'm working there. It's just part of who I am. It's part of Boris. Boris is that.
Yeah, it really is. The whole day is
absolutely
working. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, in a good way. I don't mean it in a bad.
Yeah, no, but it's actually really one of the things that I really think works so well for us is that we are together. Many years ago, I was married before to somebody else, and it was really hard. I worked by myself. And it was much, much harder to just get what I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it. I mean, the way it is right now, it just flows. It really flows. It's just part of just being. So this comes as a very, very completely 100% natural thing.
Wow.
So
we have our dogs, and our dogs, because of them, we go out and walk our dogs every day and that kind of thing. And we do certain things that we have as part of our routine. But I really would say that the day is just about always structured around something to do with our art or the business of our art. We have our website, which, we have prints and things like that. And so there's a business there. And then there's also just talking to clients and whatever. And so it's really like if we want to take time away from it, it's difficult to do that unless we actually town. We at one time we thought, let's get a studio outside the house so that we can have that dividing line. And so we got a studio. We found this really cool place. Thing is that it took about 20 minutes to get there, which is really no big deal. So people commute for a really long time to do their job. But for us, 20 minutes, we hardly ever went there. It was nuts. And so we were like, we're just so comfortable at home. We have our studio at home. And it just didn't, we just were like, we don't have to do that. It's fine to just have our lives mixed together. We have 2, the floors of our house. The upstairs, we really don't do our artwork upstairs very much. So in a way, when we go upstairs, that's kind of where we're not working. But when we're at home, it's really like our whole house is kind of, in some way, every room is practically devoted to our art or the business of our art in some way.
That's wonderful.
Nice.
And when I'm walking the dogs, honestly, when I'm walking, we alternate days because I walk a longer walk than Boris does. But while I'm walking, I am just constantly thinking about my art. So I'm developing things in my mind, and I'm letting nature come in and just filter through my head, and like talking to trees and whatever. And so it's
that's how I am too, though. That's how I am too. For like my other stuff, I'm the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
She actually comes back from her walks with the dogs, and she has pictures of the ground.
Oh, cool.
Just the ground by itself is saying a lot.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's amazing. When she shows me the pictures, it's like, oh, man, I can't believe that. It's just like how it's already a picture right there.
It's so funny. Like, seriously, the more you do that kind of thing, the more it just comes to life. And it, like, you really start to feel like certain, like, knot holes in trees and things become your friends. It's kind of weird.
That's so cool, though. Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? It makes a lot of sense.
That's what she sees, and there it is.
Yeah.
Right,
I don't really,
happen.
I'm not letting myself go so far as to be believed, so don't worry about me. I'm fine.
That's okay. That's right.
Not losing Julie, everybody. It's okay.
For me, it's about, it sounds like, it's being open to it. It's being open to experience that and let that come in, I guess.
That is exactly it. I just recently did a painting that, if anybody's seen it, that had all these. It was called Transcendent Migration or something like that, and it had these snow geese in it. There's the snow goose. They have every year, I guess. I never noticed it until this year. I've been living here for over 30 years, and I have never once seen snow geese having their migration until this year. And all of a sudden, I became aware of them, and they were just like filling the sky. And I was out walking one day, and these snow geese had just landed in this big cornfield that was around where I was standing. And it was like the most amazing experience. I really felt so swept up in it. And I just felt exactly what you were just saying, Ian, about being open to it. And I just felt like I'm just going to stand here and allow myself to just be completely open, like if I was made out of a wire mesh or something. And this is just like, I'm in it. And just let it happen to me. And it was so powerful. And so when I came home, I just started that painting, and it just happened like so fast.
Well, it's crazy because I'm looking at the painting now, and our viewers will see it and all that kind of stuff. But talking about being open to experience, you've placed the character, the persona, the speaker in the arms of that creature, right? Yeah. Even as the creature's coming along, looking over your shoulder and having that. You can see that embrace literally happening in the piece.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like your use of foreground, middle ground, background, I mean, you're swept up in this piece. There's a very nice divide there. And I love the complement. I love the blue and the gold sky, and then her gold arm and dark arm. I mean, what a cool way to separate that space, but also to include her in there. Yeah. I mean, it's layered beautifully. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like she's kind of becoming that, but she's still
skirt,
her,
right? That dress. Yeah. Well, that essence of her.
In her. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of bellows into the cloud shape that's behind her. And it's funny because I was looking at, I hate to say this, Wikipedia, and I was looking at your influences because that's something that fascinates me to no end.
Yeah. I actually don't write what's in there, so just keep in mind.
I won't look at it. You know what? I'm disregarding it. I have nothing to do with that. But the only thing that was really interesting to me were the two artists mentioned, which was, I'm going to butcher this, Alpine Hose and Mucha. I'm going to butcher that. And NC, I have a speech impediment and I can't spell very well. So looking at these two artists, I can see how those kind of organic shapes, like especially Julie in your work, when you have those spirals and you have shapes, those natural shapes that kind of come from the work. I mean, it's so tough, especially being what you are as an artist with realism, fantasy, and that kind of divide. Branching in those two ideas, right? Those kind of spiritual essence kind of spirals into the realism of the piece as well. It's such a delicate balance. I'm so fascinated by that.
Well, I feel like the spiral, I'm glad you noticed that, because the spiral is something that I think about a lot. And it's not necessarily even a cerebral thinking. It's just like, that's just what I feel, you know? And when I look around at everything, I'm just like, spirals is where it's at.
I just think they got it going on.
I mean, I don't know if it's something that's actually part of nature. I mean, I know like there is a spiral of DNA and whatever, but it's like, it just feels like everything seems to kind of be that. And so when I'm painting, and I think it also, like I love dance and movement. And like I mentioned before, I studied a lot of dance, and it's like that kind of movement is something that I just genuinely feel when I'm painting, and especially in the beginning stages, you know, when I'm just putting it down, I'm letting that stuff come through me and happen that way on the canvas. And then I let it dry, and then I come back and apply a more cerebral discipline to it afterwards, so that I get that initial energy in there to begin with.
That's fascinating. It's like this invisible force that you're capturing. It's very cool.
It's amazing. She's just totally amazing.
No, both of you are godsends.
So because I was going to ask about, because I noticed you're much more into the wildlife work at the moment, Julie, and that's been certainly what I've seen on your Instagram feed most recently, are the pieces that you've worked on. I think there was one recently. Forgive me if I'm remembering the wrong one, but there was one with a tiger in it, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although I must be careful, because Joe Jusko is also posting a lot of imagery of his Conan work, and he of course does a very similar thing with his wildlife and his creatures that he does in those paintings that he's doing for the Edgar Rice Burroughs series. And I remember one of them just evoked for me it was a tiger, and you'll know the piece better than me because obviously you created it, and I can't remember what it's called. But have you seen the movie? Was it Red Dragon? The Thomas Harris one. So the Hannibal Lecter one, and there's a character who's blind, and she's taken into a room where there's a tiger, and it's alive, but it's been so this is not going to go sinister, but it's been sedated. So it's kind of asleep, and she goes in there, and it's kind of a surprise for her. And she goes in, and she's able to touch the tiger and feel the fur, and put her head to its chest and listen to it. And something about the it was beautifully filmed. It's a Michael Mann adaptation, the first movie that was adapted of that story, and it's just the way that scene is created and feels reminded me a lot of that tiger piece that you did. It just kind of connected with me to that.
Are you thinking of the one of a woman and she's with a jaguar?
It may well be. Apologies.
But it's like one of a single figure of a woman kneeling, and then there's a big cat next to her. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, I think that's the one. Yeah, I think that's the one.
I did one with a bunch of tigers together, but there was no figure in there of a person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it Emerald Eyes? Is the one I'm looking at the moment?
Oh, Emerald Eyes. So that's a tiger. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's small. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's the one. And
I love animals. So, I mean, I honestly, and humans are part of that, because it's like we're all animals. And I just love, that spirit of life that comes into each creature. It's just, to me, it's just so touching, and like when I see this tiger and his eyes, and I spend a lot of time taking photographs, going, unfortunately it's all mostly going to be in the zoo because that's where I get to see tigers, but
I was going to ask, I was like, Julie, are you bringing these things into the studio?
I don't really like the idea of having wild animals in our home.
Yeah.
Except for Boris and Nuff,
Well, Boris notwithstanding.
And a couple dragons here and there, but they're tame, So.
They're buddies. Well, I think, and what Ian was talking about, which I find so fascinating, is both of you. Now, I'm looking at everyone's work here. So Scarlet and Fuchsia, your piece, Julie.
Yeah.
The flamingos and the woman. I love how you mirrored the back of that woman to the flamingos' necks, and those curves kind of fall throughout the whole piece. So fascinating. That was a random thing I just said. I'm so sorry.
Cool.
Back to what I was actually going to say. Sorry, I saw it and I was like, oh, that looks so cool.
Yeah, you're catching the rhythm there. Yeah,
the rhythm. I love that. Both you have amazing detail eyes not detail eyes. It's texture. Mm-hmm. When I look at both of your work, even in the muscles of the guys or women, like I feel those. Yeah. You know what I mean? I feel the structure of that body, and it's very much the same for the animals, especially with what Ian was saying about with the fur and stuff like that, right? Like the king's scepter is another one where the gorilla has that kind of amazing lush to that hair, and in Boris's piece, I feel like these characters, because of the way you have that shine, right, that lighting, that body and that fabric and that kind of textures, even in dragons and everything else that you do, which is heavily fantasy, it's there, it's textual, right? And I think that's just so interesting how you both do that.
Definitely, it's very conscious. Yeah,
it's definitely conscious. It's really part of what you're saying with the painting. I'm just right now, I'm working on a painting that is supposed to be a fictitious character, and it has just a just a basic background, I mean, Julie was talking about Asclepius, and just working on the background itself. It's just so wonderful to be able to just create, at something that doesn't exist.
I mean, your imagination's crazy cool. I mean, it's so amazing.
The whole scene.
Wow.
And it's just to study that, for me, I'm doing it, but I'm studying at the same time, I'm trying to figure out, how does that happen? Why does it happen? And where am I going to go with it?
Well, so fascinating, because I have a question about that. So for the piece Emerging, which you have on your website, I believe it's called Emerging, right? Yeah, it's the woman who's standing there and she has this kind of like two-piece bikini of like, I don't know what the texture is, but it's just fascinating. She's kind of like not in these bubbles, but this like dragon goo or whatever. It's very cool. Yeah. It has like bubbles in it and stuff like that. Where did you get the inspiration for that texture? Like, because all this stuff is so otherworldly that you create. I'm just so fascinated by like the inspiration for that.
That happens. You don't even really decide, I'm going to do it this way. It happens, and it goes in a certain direction, and you make it work even more so that way. Really interesting, because I mean, this is what I was talking about, the background of the painting that I'm working on right now, is that, it's supposed to be something, but it happens in a certain way, and you follow that, and you follow it, and you make it more so, but it's happening as you're doing it, not beforehand.
And then you see a little thing that's working, and then you just start to riff on. You're like, oh, there, okay, that's right. Where we're going. All right,
nice. And you kind of start to pull on that thread.
Right.
I imagine, and okay, I've got it. Yeah. It's interesting. When I was looking through the Titans book, I made some notes, and this is just my notes, and there might be. I'm not, although I like the art, I'm not a student of art, as it were. And I noticed that the very subtle differences between your styles, and I just wanted to touch on that, because I think a lot of our listeners will find that quite fascinating to hear your kind of take on it. And I've just made notes here, just looking at the full-size pictures. So Boris, I noticed that a lot of your pieces had a smoothness to the characters and to the skin, and a tautness, I guess, to them, especially on the male characters. Very unwrinkled, bold colours, kind of quite a clean almost texture to the smoothness of the muscle, because there's strength in every single form. But I noticed when I was looking through specifically yours, Julie, is that there's a lot more definition and detail in some of the pictures in the sinews the word I came on. It just seemed to me the most appropriate word, and then I started looking at those details wherever I came across them in some pictures. So for example, there's a picture of Doctor Strange where a good half of the picture is his hands.
He was always one of my favorite characters, by the way. So I was really into that one. Yeah.
But it was just the detail of his hands. I just became mesmerized. I mean, I know there's Doctor Strange behind you, and he's doing this thing with the Eye of Vishante, and it's all wonderful. But the hands.
Well, when I decided, when I was going to do that character, first of all, I was like, yes, I get to do Doctor Strange. I love it. I just thought, all right, what am I going to do? And then I thought of the concept, and then, I just thought, okay, I want to make this all about the hands. So I just really allow myself to just really fall in love with what's happening in the hands, and really you have to just feel the love for the thing that you're going to be making the focus of attention in your painting or whatever. And, I mean, they even use that term when I don't know, when I have been, Boris and I both would teach at the illustration masterclass every year, and I remember the woman who organized it, Rebecca LaVille Gay. She would say to students, you need, if there was a part of a painting that they needed to work on more, she'd say, you need to give a little more love to this. And I always thought such a great, I mean, I've heard other people say that, but she's the one that I learned those words from in applying it to way of thinking about it. And it's such a great way to describe what it is that you have to do in order to really bring out what you want to say with that part of a painting, is think about it, loving it, give it love, like actual love.
I love that. Love that. Absolutely love that. It's amazing. I did have a question that I'm going to be really upset if I forget to ask. So I'm going to ask since we're going to start bridging over into your work on the Marvel and the 96 and all that stuff. Do you have some favorite pieces that you remember fondly, or any fun stories from the 96 Marvel set that you have? Like, do you have like a favorite piece where you're like, because for you were like, oh, I love Doctor Strange, so the hands, I absolutely love that story, right? Is there anything else that comes to mind for you, Boris or Julie?
I tell you what I feel. It's really interesting because recently, last week actually, I got an email from a fan, and he was asking me if I had a favorite painting that I had done, that I had gotten, what I really, really want to get in a painting. And I thought about it, and I told him, I don't have a favorite painting. Each painting is my favorite in ways, for different reasons. But I don't have one favorite.
Well, one of the ones of yours that is one of my favorites is Hawkeye that you did. I love your Hawkeye.
Ooh, yes.
Well, this is a good spin on it.
He didn't like my answer. He
didn't like your answer.
He didn't like my answer.
Outrageous.
Said, okay, I'm just going to rephrase my question. He said, "Is there something about any painting that you feel was more successful, that worked better?" And
you can't trap Boris in the corner.
I have to tell him, really, I really have to tell him what I feel, because I really feel that I don't release a painting unless I feel it's successful.
Yeah,
that's
really the truth.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a chef not letting food go out of their kitchen because it's not perfection.
Just do it over, right? Yeah.
I put myself into each painting, and there it is. Mm-hmm. If for whatever reason I don't like the painting, which hasn't happened, I wouldn't release it. I would just put it away, and that's that.
Yeah.
But they're all part of you. From what you've said, they're all
exactly. I think about it. I put myself into it. And there it is. That's it. Another one.
It's like having part of your personality, right?
That's it.
That makes sense.
Well, here's a spin on it then, which we kind of fell into. Julie, you've said one of Boris's favourite pieces that you like. Boris, do you have a piece of Julie's that you're particularly fond from that set that you can remember or think of? Or is this...
No.
I knew he'd say that.
No.
Good man. He's not going to give Good man. Stay strong.
Seriously, I can't really pick. Each one, has something that it really, it's like I can't say that. Yeah. I really cannot say that and be faithful, to my thinking.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Well, you mentioned earlier about backgrounds, Boris, when we were talking briefly about backgrounds. I think some of the really cool stuff that happened in the Marvel set, like the Thanos piece, where he's kind of in that pose.
Uh-huh.
There's no background. Obviously there's a background, but it's just this red that kind of fades into blackness at the top.
Mm.
I mean, what a decision, right? Especially when, it's such a masterful decision. Like it just gets me. I don't know why. I know why, but I don't want to be talking forever. But anyway, I think it was a really cool decision, and I just want to hear a little more from you about, like, you did that with the Human Torch as well. When he's completely embellished in flame, and the background's black, but you can see the fire spiral in the background. It's just really this empty negative space. Yeah.
On some of them.
Really cool.
Really. I actually let it happen. I really let it happen. I decide, when I'm going to do a painting, I start thinking about, how I want to do it, but then it happens.
Wow.
Well, there were some paintings that you have done as some of the superheroes, as you're mentioning, and also some others in your fantasy work, and some that were kind of more surrealistic, where you, see, this is the one he was talking about, where you like this idea of having the figure be all the texture within the painting, and the background is just more of a flat thing, and so what I remember you showed me other artists' artwork that you liked, where they did this, where they had a flat background, and it really, what it does is it emphasizes the figure in a different way, and it gives it this kind of modern, more graphic design kind of look rather than a painting with a whole background and a scene. That Iceman, I like that.
You see it, as you are doing it, you see it, or I see it. I see it happening, and I go in that direction. I move in that direction, because
that's the Spidey.
It's in front of me. And I have to say, throughout all these years of working professionally, I have developed this skill to do what is in my head, and put it down.
That's
as I say, I see it happening, and I make it more so.
Do you? One thing you mentioned earlier when I asked you about what you felt if you were, as you were starting to look up that mountain, and you said, "Oh, if I were to be asked it again, I'm sure it would be the same." Have you been asked again to come back and do any work on Marvel sets?
No.
No. I know that a lot of people, a lot of collectors, always get very excited and hope.
Every new year, we're like, are they coming back?
Marvel
Is it happening?
And I guess, and I'm not to put words into your mouth. I mean, you can talk to this yourself, but I guess from listening to you, it feels like you've explored that world and you've played in that arena, and you're kind of, you revisit it on commissions occasionally, but you've kind of maybe done that, and you might not want to go back to it. Is that maybe how it is?
That's definitely fair. It's still really cool and everything, and we enjoy, like I said, the movies, and we like seeing what's going on, and as much as we do, but it's just not really, I've just got so many other things that I'm thinking about. So
both of your works too have I think, for me, that set, your names, that brings people back. That's the nostalgia. That's the art always being appreciated, right? That's a chapter, like in a book.
People love it. So it really was meaningful to anybody. I'm so grateful, really, that people felt that way about it. Really.
Oh, we are as well. Believe me.
We are. Yeah. Because there's this kind of collectors, artists kind of thing happening here, where it's like the artists appreciate us appreciating it, and we appreciate all the time and work you put into the work, into the art. It's very mutual.
Nice. Yeah.
It's good. You very, very, very briefly. We'll let you go soon, because I know that you've probably got things that you're itching to create. And I'm hoping that in some way we inspire you in some of today's. And not
this side right here, just in case. Okay, I sent you a picture. Don't worry.
I wore this shirt special. This is new.
It was really pretty. That's the prettiest shirt he's ever worn on the show. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
It is true. It is true. Do you? So you mentioned you watch the Marvel movies. I'm just curious, because obviously you're people as well as artists and creators and visionaries and all these other words that I'm sure you've heard describe you. What do you kind of watch, read? What do you consume? When you're not creating? I mean, I can't imagine you sitting down and watching Jeopardy with a TV dinner on your laps. But
I'm saying anything bad about Jeopardy. I love Jeopardy. I used to love Jeopardy when I was younger, but I don't watch it now. That's true. But no. But we really don't. Watch TV or anything too much. We. Usually in the evenings we might watch.
Yes, before we go to sleep.
Just to kind of make a break between the day of doing all the things, because you really do have to shut your brain off, or you will not sleep if you're in a For me, if I'm sketching and stuff just before I close my eyes to sleep, I will not sleep restfully at all because my brain is way too active. I have to do something to make it get a little zoned out. So, we watch things on Netflix, go through different series. We just really enjoyed finishing Schitt's Creek. Such a good.
Oh my God, so good! It's so good. I'm waiting for the last season, so I don't know spoilers because I know.
Say anymore, but we just saw the whole deal, so it's.
They're such a sweet couple. Like I love David. They're so nice.
I've not even heard of this show.
What?
Really?
It's so good.
You have a treasure in front of you now.
Oh, wow.
I'm so lucky, bro. I wish I could go back. It's so good.
It's really interesting, because we have a very, how could I put it, really very specific day. We spend the whole day working. We walk our dogs, of course, but other than that, we work all day. And after dinner, and we ready to relax, we watch 1 hour of television.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is.
At the most. Sometimes not even. Sometimes it's like 20 minutes or half hour.
20 minutes or whatever. But what we do through the day as entertainment, it's music. We listen to music.
True.
And we alternate. One day is Julie's music. The next day is my day of music.
Oh, wow.
And that's what we do.
That's pretty cool.
Old cuts or new stuff or...
Yeah, Boris mostly he mostly always puts classical music on, and I am all over the place, the same as I am with my painting.
I love it.
I love
it.
Well, I'm going to send you a musical recommendation once we finish here of something to check out, which is about. I've recommended this to you as well, Norrin, but I don't think you ever watched it. Which is kind of a jazz fusion band called Snarky Puppy.
I did. I liked it.
Did you watch Snarky Puppy?
Yeah, I did.
Snarky Puppy is brilliant.
It's really cool. It's
Snarky
really nice.
Puppy. Serious. Snarky Puppy. They're from Brooklyn and Texas. There's 15 of them, I think, and they do instrument. They did do one album with vocals, but they do instrumental jazz. It's very fresh. It's very modern. They've done a couple of albums with a full orchestra as well, a Scandinavian orchestra, which was called Silver, and it's got 5 pieces of music in it, and it's kind of an orchestra mixed with what they do, and it's beautiful fusion. And each track is about a different wood or forest in mythology.
Oh
and
my God.
It's absolutely stunning. And one of the beautiful things about it is that when they do the albums, a lot of the time they record them live. So in a live setting. So what you hear hasn't gone through the studio hundreds of times. And with a lot of their albums, you can actually watch them recording it with people sat around amongst the musicians wearing headphones, and so the audience is amongst them. It's fascinating.
Amazing. I definitely want to hear that.
No, I'll send you a link. It's truly for me personally. On a, it's not that it's therapy hour with Ian, but it seriously, saved my bacon last year when there was some stuff going on. I listened to that album a lot, so I strongly recommend that. And I'll drop you the link on that one. And I think listen. I could chat to you all day. I know you've got stuff to do, and we should probably let you go. So thank you.
Fun. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us.
This very much.
And we'll, hope you'll invite us back another day.
Absolutely.
You have no idea.
Absolutely. I know that you guys have your website, and what we do with each episode is we put out our tasting notes and we put out links. So we'll obviously put a link to your website, which I'm pretty sure most of our listeners will know and have gone to anyway. And I know that you do your annual calendars of your work, which is fabulous.
So cool.
But is there anything else that you're working on that you want to talk about or promote or tell people that's coming soon, or is it just kind of it just escapes when it's ready?
Yeah, that's what happens. You just have to wait.
Oh, so cool. I just wanted to say, from everyone, from Ian and I, again, thank you for everything. You have no idea. You've really, you've made it really worthwhile. Like this is probably for me, it's my favorite set you two have drawn my favorite character. My favorite rendition of the Surfer is from you guys. No kidding. We talked about this before. This is not being made up on the spot. All seriousness. Both of your rendition of the Surfer, for me, nothing. For me, just, it's crazy.
We really wish we would have done Shala Ball.
Oh my God! Yes, yes. I mean, the greatest love story ever told. Yeah.
Well, there's always time. There's always time.
There's futures.
The meaning of the two of them
together on
they could never be together, and yeah.
No, my heart just grew like the Grinch. It just grew.
I just do that.
This man is going to need a stiff whiskey at the end of the day, isn't he?
I think you guys are lovely. We love you both.
Thank you so much. You too. You guys are great. Thank you.
One of the things we say at the end of every episode is, before we sign off, is enjoy collecting. So we would absolutely love it if you would both just like end the episode for us just by our catchphrase at the end of each week.
Well, you guys enjoy collecting.
Thanks for listening to the Marvel Card Collectors podcast. Visuals and tasting notes for each episode can be found on our Facebook page. You can subscribe and leave us a voicemail via our home on anchor.fm/MCCP. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Please take a second to subscribe, like, and review our show wherever you get your podcasts. Our podcast can be found by Googling @the MCC Pod, which will also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Our Facebook community is at MCCW, Marvel Card Collectors Worldwide, and MMC, Marvel Masterpieces Collectors. The great music we use is called Rocket Power by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks to the collectors, artists, and creators who support the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. We'll see you next time, and remember, it's a small hobby but a fun one. Make mine Marvel and enjoy collecting.